the octagon, the ultimate proving ground. Have you guys heard that one before? So, I've always loved that expression because there's only so many brands in all of the world where the expression and everything that they do is actually encompassed. The mission statement itself is actually encompassed within a marketing slogan. Of my lifetime, and this could be because at Nike's headquarters is 22 minutes right behind me. Maybe I'm a homer a little bit, but just do it. Just do it is amongst the great pieces of advice you could ever give somebody on any level of success. Relationship, education, what business, any way you want to do it. Just do it. It's really great. And I got to put ultimate proving ground right in there. But can we agree? Can we agree that it is the ultimate proving ground? Okay, because it's important that you do, because everything that we have in this sport is based on an idea and it's based on an opinion of somebody else who we have granted an authority to. So, I'll use myself. I got a black belt in jiu-jitsu under Fabiano Schörner. It's a very hard black belt to get. I know I brag about it sometimes. There's plenty of black belts out there. It's a very hard black belt to get. Took me 20 years. And what made me a black belt? What made me a black belt, guys? Because you all accepted. None of you challenged me. What made me a black belt? That Fabiano Schörner said I was. That's what it was. I actually got it on a Wednesday night. I did not practice between Tuesday and Wednesday. I was the same guy. There was nothing that had changed. There was no skill I developed. There was nothing different, but he gave it to me on a Wednesday. I am not a black belt on Tuesday. I'm not a black belt Wednesday morning. I wasn't a black belt Wednesday when I got in my car to drive to practice, even though I had the same set of skills. I became a black belt because he said so. And we all accept that. Right? Okay. Now, let's take a look at rankings. And there's nothing in our sport that is more corrupted from a standpoint of not understanding than the rankings. The rankings were put in place because every other sport on God's earth that was accepted had rankings. It's the same reason we put a Hall of Fame in our sport. It wasn't because we wanted to spend the money or throw the party. It was to be in line with other sports. Now, that's good stuff. Before you think there's a conspiracy, that's good stuff. That makes good sense. But when you have a ranking system, right, the most unfair thing in the world that you'll have to deal with, and you'll have to deal with it all the time, is people judging other people. It is so wildly difficult when that happens, because there's so many outside factors that you'd like to pretend you're above the bias you're not subjected to. But of course you are. Sure. You ever seen a gymnast do well? Think of any gymnast you've ever followed anywhere. Have you ever seen a gymnast do well that had bad press, that had bad media, that had been arrested, that was on the front page of TMZ, that fill in the blank, that had done something publicly wrong? Right? It's a very hard thing to do because you're being judged. It's all going to spill over. And it's really important that you understand everything that we have in this sport is largely a judgment of somebody else to get your belt. In my case, black, but to get your belt. Of all the hard work, but what made it official is that somebody else said so. To have your ranking. Okay. So my level of skill for the belt system, for the grassroots hometown where this whole thing starts, is going to be based on my coach, my professor, Fabiano Schörner. Your ranking is going to be determined by 9 a.m. every Tuesday morning and will be posted on a.com. So that's a judgment. Fabiano gave me a black belt because he judged my skills. The fighters that have a ranking have their ranking because they have a judgment by this group of where they're placed. And they don't always go together. Francis Ngannou, and I realize that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but I will bring Francis in. And Francis has something in common with Jon Jones, which is that neither one of them has a black belt in anything. Much like my mentor, Randy Couture. Randy, later in life, after 3 world championships, was given a black belt by Neil Melanson. But I'm just sharing with you, like, it's not always your coach that made that decision that will carry out into the octagon, which is the final proving ground. See, I'm attempting to prove for you that there's a hierarchy. Not everybody is equal. Even though you receive your belt in the gym because of somebody's opinion, even though you receive your ranking because of somebody's opinion, you see where they're different, and you see where they don't go hand in hand. Why a guy like Israel Adesanya is just another example. But when he became world champion, he had a purple belt under Galvo. I believe that has been elevated to brown. It's still not black. So we start to understand that we've got these different judgments within this sport, but that they're not all equal. And when you talk about the octagon and you talk about the final proving ground, your placement on the card is being decided by somebody else. See, this is a final judgment. So you start with your gym, and everybody accepts it and understands on whatever belt that person says, right? And then you have a ranking, and those don't ever get questioned or challenged. Like, you cannot recall a time as a hardcore fan where anyone's ever looked at a ranking and go, man, this is what? You got this guy at number 5. He beat number 3 and 4. What the hell happened here? Like, there's never a debate. It's just accepted within our sport. But we do understand that that's a judgment. That number next to your name may or may not be true. Okay, great. But now we have another in the ultimate proving ground. We have card placement. Much like the ranking system, we don't know how that comes about. But we do know that we got a sport wrapped around a business, or a business wrapped around a sport. And we do know, regardless of the color of belt that our hometown coach gave us, and regardless of the number that comes out on a .com at 9 a.m. every Tuesday morning, the placement on the card is going to be yet another group's opinion. But that opinion is so strong that it's going to make this entire thing possible. Now, I give you this entire diatribe, okay? Because Beneil Dariush came out and said a win this weekend doesn't do anything for me. Now, Beneil Dariush likes his Uncle Chael, and he trusts his Uncle Chael. But he doesn't listen to his Uncle Chael. My father used to tell me this all the time, you don't listen to him. I said, Dad, I heard every word you say. When you speak, I close my mouth. I stare right at you. I've heard everything you say. Then he would go through what every parent has to go through. And no, I'm not saying you didn't hear me. I'm saying you didn't listen to me. You didn't believe it. You didn't trust it. You didn't execute. I gave you the answers. There is nothing that we can do on the adult level that is going to trump and exceed what it is you say. And it's not true when we're children. When we're children, we'll do a coloring or we'll do a drawing in class, and then we'll hold it up for our classmates or even our teachers. And this is awful. I didn't do a very good job here. And they will all come around just like you wanted them to and go, oh no, I really like it. You did a really good. You sure understand colors and you stayed in the line. You're very creative. Like it works at a certain point, but never in any walk as an adult does it work. Nowhere will you be able to say, oh, well, this isn't very good. And somebody else will come along and go, my God, yes, it is. You're too hard on yourself. Not only does that work, we're going to promote you and we're going to give you a bonus. They will always take you at your word. So it's a very difficult position when Beneil Dariush comes out and says, I'm not going to gain anything with this win. Now, Benny is very unique. Benny's the only guy. in fact, that I know of and that I've ever seen that is sincere when he tells you, I'm not going to play that game. I'm not playing the politics, the trash talk. We're in the middle of the entertainment era. I'm the best damn fighter here in the middle of the entertainment era. I didn't come to be an entertainer. I came to be a fighter. Like, he actually means it. And if you don't give him a title shot, he genuinely is not going to have sour grapes. He's not. This guy's a competitor, and we have to respect and appreciate that. But there's still a but. There was a coach somewhere that said he's a black belt. He'd been a black belt for a long time. I was a purple belt back when Benny was a black belt. There's a rankings committee that's had him all the way up at the top. As a matter of fact, he had a bout agreement signed with the current champion, Islam Makhachev. He had a bout agreement signed and went through with the match with the champion prior to that in Charles Oliveira. So the coach has given him a pass. The rankings committee said, boy, you're great. But then he comes to the final proving ground. He is the main event. There is nothing in this sport that trumps your card placement. Nothing. If you want to make it, if you want to make money, if you want to be remembered, if you want to be a contender, everything that you dream of that got you in this in the first place is a little boy with a dream. Either comes true or doesn't come true based on your card placement. It does not matter how great you look. It doesn't matter how great you do. It doesn't matter if you hit a flying armbar triangle into a Superman punch. If you did it and it wasn't on TV, that's just the truth. It does not matter how wonderful your performance was if it wasn't a feature bout. That's just the truth. And I say that because I can't make Benny's match now matter. I can't get him a big bump because he's already said it. I can't, as though he was a third grader, come in over the top as the teacher and say, yes, well, even though you said your drawing's bad, I'm going to put it up here as drawing of the weekend. Everybody's going to say, you guys have those boards in your classroom and they pin it up and you get to feel proud. I don't get to do that as an adult. He's put me in a very difficult position. But if Benny's match doesn't matter, none of them do. None of them do. Do you understand that? These aren't Chael's rules. This is how this sport works. If Benny, who is the main event and the highest ranked guy on the card, if he doesn't get a bounce from a victory, taking on per rankings alone, a harder opponent than anybody else's, per capita, if you will, in a 5-round affair, as the last fight of the night in a feature state like Texas on goddamn ESPN. I mean, if he doesn't get a bounce from that, nobody does. I don't care if number 15's fighting number 1. If it's an earlier fight than his, it doesn't have the same consequence. I do not care if one guy gets to move up 4 spots in a ranking, and that's impossible for Benny because he's already ranked so high. Nobody can do better and nobody can get more, regardless of the performance, regardless of the match, regardless of how the critics pan it after the fact. Nobody under the main event can get more than the main event. So I'm only bringing this to you because Benny's statement is not only untrue, it's factually untrue. There has not been a fighter because guys, don't forget, he was on an 8-fight win streak when he stubbed his toe against Oliveira. That would have been 9. I know Matt Brown had 7. And we've had guys that are real close in there. And Chimaev's creeping up on a good 5 or 6 in a row. I mean, I know we've had 7 a couple of times, and we had an 8. Bilal Muhammad, who had a draw, but it wasn't a lot. He's at number 8. I mean, these are record-setting numbers, right? Like, I can't go as far as to tell you that nobody's won 8 in a row and not got a title shot. I can't go that far without doing a piece of research because there might have been one guy. So he could be tied. But tied throughout history and something that started in 1993. I mean, do you understand these arguments? Now, you want a fun stat? You want a fun stat that Benny should be sitting up there yelling from the rooftops? There has never been a fighter to be a main event more times than Benny, who's, again, a main event on Saturday. There has never been a fighter in history who has done more main events and not gotten a title fight. I haven't the foggiest idea who those guys beat along the way. It doesn't make a bit of difference. It doesn't matter who you submitted in the gym, if anybody. If the coach says you're a black belt, that's how this works. It doesn't matter how screwed up they have your rank. They got Bo Nichols screwed up right now. They had Sean O'Malley, who turned out to be the best fighter in the world, ranked number 10 before he goes in there with Peter Yan. They moved him 10 spots overnight in a controversial match. That's how wrong these things are. Doesn't change anything. That's still the way this game is played. It doesn't matter what the guy is ranked or what he did in his last fight. And frankly, Benny's opponent, who's a study, I believe is on a 3-fight streak, but I don't know who those 3 guys are. I would know. I don't mean that it's disrespect. I don't have these things off the top of my head. I don't know where he's ranked off the top of my head. I don't know if he's done 5 rounds before off the top of my head. I don't know in those 3-fight streak that he's on. I don't know if he knocked him out, submitted him. I don't know these kinds of things. But nobody does. That's where I tell you that the rankings has been corrupted and misunderstood by the fighters. If Benny's to say that beating this gentleman doesn't elevate him, I mean, but if he's to say that, based on what piece of data? Based on what piece of data is he coming to that conclusion? He's coming to the ranking? He's going, well, this is how it works. Well, excuse me, Benny. There hasn't been a fighter to be ranked in the top 3 for 3 years straight like you have that hasn't gotten a title fight. So why would I not look to that piece of data? There has not been a fighter to headline as many events as you and not be given a title fight. There is not a fighter to sign a bout agreement with the now reigning champion, go through some unfortunate bad luck, come back and not get that match. So it's one of these really hard spots where I can't come over the top of Benny. I just can't. It doesn't work that way. I'd love to. I'd love to treat him like he was a kindergartner and say, no, your drawing's really good. That's not why he said it, by the way. Benny did not come out and say this so that we'd all lift him up. But I'm just sharing for you, the only time that the outcome and result of Beneil Dariush's matches on Saturday did not elevate and bounce him is when it came out of his mouth. There has never been a report ever anywhere. This is go Google it. 160 characters on Twitter, now known as X. Anywhere you want to do it, there has never been a report anywhere that says Benny doesn't become eligible for a title fight with a win here. Daniel Cormier, to get his first title shot, fought a gentleman, Pat Cummings, a friend and workout partner of mine, who was a barista 2 weeks before and had no ranking and he had no record. Daniel did not have to beat a guy in front of him to get that spot. He needed to get a feature match, which he did, a co-main spot, only headlined by Ronda Rousey with Will Smith sitting in the front row. If the outcome of the main event doesn't matter, no match on the card matters. I do not know where this data is coming from. I don't know what stat that Benny's speaking to. I don't know of any other division where you have a guy in the top 5, in his case the top 3, for 3 years and you don't get it. And moreover, there's never been anybody to have this many main events and not be given a title shot. So I'll see Benny's stat. I don't get it. I don't know where it came from. I have no idea who told him that these rankings are the end-all be-all. But if he would like to go and look at the rankings, and he would like to see everybody in front of him, and it's a very short list, they don't provide for parity. They have already fought with the champion, which happens to be a bout agreement that he personally has already had. The notion that you don't get anything for a win in a 5-round main event against a top 10 ranked guy in one of the premier fight states, which is Texas, on the worldwide leader of ESPN. That is fiction. It is wrong, and Benny should not have said it.